Hello, this is Norbunik here, and I want to talk today about why I started up this whole big vision that I have for growing gardens of love, for a different way of growing food. Um, and for this, I would like to first say I would today really like to talk about why or what problems we have in agriculture that we have at the moment. Just so you understand where I'm coming from, I am a trained biodynamic fruit grower, and I have had about 10 years experience very intensively growing fruit, and then another 9 on and off working in orchards um, due to other things. um, so I have seen a lot of what's going on. Also, we've been growing our fruit at Tablehurst Farm, where that meant that there were other enterprises going on as well. So I was able to observe what was happening there, and of course I've been walking around a lot and reading a lot about growing food. So I have a fairly clear picture of that. And now, while we were being fruit growers, and what I have observed around this is, well, there is a lot of challenges. First of all, the thing that we really ran into that was very, very strongly a reason for me to need change, to see there is a need for change, is that we were having so much work and so much stress, and we never had enough income from the business to hire other people to come and help us. Now, I know that this is not exactly like that for every business, but for every, like, sometimes people who grow vegetables can manage to make it work quite well for them. But generally speaking, when you have to buy your land, which is quite expensive, and then have to get, like we did, we have to buy all our apple trees, and put up a whole system with posts and wires to keep the trees up, and you need your machinery. And that's a lot of costs up front before you get started. And if you keep animals as well, that the animals cost a lot, and you need housing for them, and all machinery again. So a lot of farming is a very big investment, especially if you don't come from a farming family like neither of us did, me and my now former partner. And while you can harvest a reasonably good crop from this, from the fruit trees, we did quite well a lot of years. There were all these costs that were still dragging behind that needed to be paid, and also we had just one harvest in a year for those 10 years that I farmed intensively, or full time, and that meant that we had to spread this money out over the whole season, the whole rest of the year, to pay the bills. So especially towards harvest time, this was really difficult. We had to pay people to come and pick the fruit, but we didn't have the money yet to pay that came back to us from the fruit. So it was always very difficult to get that cash flow right. So it was so much stress and so much work that was really difficult. And I have seen that for many people who grow, be it fruit or keep animals or do other kinds of farming, that often you end up spending all your waking hours on the farm, on your land, working. And although it's a beautiful thing to do, it does mean that if you don't get rest, if you don't have time to step back, if you feel too stressed to do that, it's obviously very bad for your health. But what I also observed is coming from quite a different direction. It's everything to do with the land and how we treat it. So Um, yes, the way we grow crops, we tend to have large blocks of the same crop, right? We have like a whole orchard full of apples, a whole orchard full of pears. We have fields and fields of animals, which is generally either cows or sheep, or you know, you can mix it a bit, but most farms don't have too much of a mix. And then you have arable crops, which is huge fields of grain or potatoes or sugar beets or something along those lines, of fodder beans. Um, yeah, or you have vegetables, and then you do a little bit more mixing. So it's a bit different, but still, you tend to have a block of the same thing. And the problem with this is that it's very easy for a disease or a pest to come in and say, "Ooh, I've got tons to eat here," and they multiply, 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 and can become a huge, big problem. And this is then, of course, an invitation for the farmer to think, "Oh dear, now I'm going to have to use some means to protect the crop, be it some pesticide or some chemicals to spray on to kill any diseases and so forth." Which then, of course, being fungicides, being pesticides, these things are no doubt not good for us to eat. So here we go, putting stuff on our food that's basically poison. And now in organic and biodynamic agriculture, of course, we do so much less of that. Especially the pesticides we tend to very, very rarely use, only if something really gets out of hand, because our crops can grow more slowly, so they're stronger. But we still have some challenges, and we noticed in the beginning, especially, that we had quite a lot of problem with aphids and so on, and caterpillar things. So yeah, before you have an established this beautiful ecosystem where there is predators to come and eat those things, it's problematic. But in our experience with the fruit trees, our biggest challenge was and is a disease called scab, and it comes in. It's just a fungus that comes in, and it just affects the leaves and then the apples, and then there's less photosynthesis, and the apples are really rough and ugly, and they fall from the trees if you're unlucky. And also they look just really bad, and the skin is not nice to eat, so they're just not so attractive. And obviously when it's on the leaves, it means that the tree can't make so much energy, so can't make such beautiful, lovely apples. So we have always used natural fungicides like sulfur, and previously copper as well, which is not allowed anymore for some reason. And we've used baking powder as well, just different things, but still spraying stuff on it. And although they are natural, anything used to like kill fungus. I mean, with the sulfur, I really notice it in the orchard that it blocks up my nose and throat, so it's not good for us, and it's there on the fruit, and it can't be that good for the trees either to have tons of it. And then we have also got some other fungi which we can't really do much about, because there isn't an effective natural thing to kill this disease called canker in the wood, which really eats it up and kills the tree in the trunk, really in the wood. So basically, we're constantly fighting the consequences of how we grow things. Yeah, that's really what I've observed. So you get these blocks of the same thing, disease comes in, and we as a farmer do our best to find the best ways to fight this disease. And we just, in all the measures we take, it seems that we are trying to compensate for some mistake we started with, or the way we grow things. And that also is things like in agriculture. I've heard it so often that it really stuck with me that years ago, before we had tractors, we used horses and plows, and that didn't compact the soil too much. It's, you break it open, but it's okay. But then we invented tractors, and the tractors were much more efficient, and they could pull bigger machines through, but they were also heavier than a horse and a plow. So they compact the soil, and then it's harder to pull that same machine through. So 10 years later, we say, we need a bigger tractor. We get a bigger tractor because otherwise we can't pull the plow through the soil, and so on and so on and so on. And you end up with these huge, big machines and really compacted soil. And the problem with that is that roots don't go down very well, water doesn't get absorbed. And really, the whole ploughing is constantly opening up the soil, which leads to a loss of humus, which gets burned when it gets exposed to oxygen. And humus, which is basically just plant matter, which is already half digested, sort of digested, really helps different soils to stabilize. So we have, for instance, sandy soil. If you think of a hand of sand from the beach, if you throw water on it, it just seeps right through. But once you have lots of humus in there, the humus helps to hold the water. Now, in a clay soil, think of clay, the water just sits on top, right? And it can't go through, which is its own problem, obviously. But then when you have the humus in it, it can sort of slowly seep through. So humus is very, very, not humus, humus is very important to stabilize the soil. And every time we plow it open, break it open, we lose humus, and so we lose fertility, and we lose the capacity for the soil to deal with water properly, be it the sand way or the clay way. And that leads to floods and droughts and lots of problems. So we have and also every time you pull open the soil and you crack it open, and when it's all bare, it invites plants to come and grow there, weeds. But basically they're just trying to come and cover it up, because soil does not like to be bare. It's like it wants to be having something growing there to nourish it, to take care of it. And so we get weeds like thistles to break up that hard soil. We get nettles if there is too much artificial fertilizer that's been put on, or other chicken poop as well. It just grows there too. It really actually a beautiful plant, nettles. They really make a beautiful humus rich soil. They're just a bit prickly, a bit annoying when you try and pick your berries from in between the nettles. Yeah, we have that a lot at the orchards now, or we have rows of say red currants, and then you've got this chickens underneath, which is beautiful because then we have the nutrients there. But then the nettles love to grow there, and it makes it quite annoying to harvest. And I think if we wouldn't pull open the soil so often to make sure that there's no weeds growing on the plants, then we wouldn't get the kind of weeds that we do. So there must be other ways to do it, right? And there are, and that's what I've been researching, and I know that probably a lot of people have heard of permaculture. And permaculture is such a beautiful collection of ideas, common sense ideas, of how to use the ideas that are already working in nature, in a forest, in a field, and seeing how we can use that in our farming. And so next time I would really like to go deep into how to do that, and what that involves to remedy a lot of these issues. That's mainly the growing issues, less so the financial and stress things, but even there, permaculture offers some solutions and ideas. So I'll tell you more next time. And thank you so much for tuning in if you did listen all the way to the end. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this if you have any. Thank you.